Dear beloved members of the Loving Truth Stories family, greetings. Today, we bring you a romantic story that will stir your heart and captivate your soul. So let's begin. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another meaningful story. It starts with a moment no one thought possible. A billionaire CEO, a man so cold and untouchable that he hadn't smiled in 20 years, suddenly caught off guard. And what broke through his walls? Not money, not power, but the unexpected voice of a poor secretary singing alone in an empty office. One song, one innocent performance, and the world of a man who lived in silence began to change forever. The city skyline glimmered like shattered diamonds against the night, but inside Blackwell Corporation's towering glass building, the air was silent, heavy, and almost oppressive. Most employees had already gone home hours ago. Only one office light remained on. Erica Collins sat at her desk, humming softly while stapling papers together. The rhythm of her song echoed faintly through the empty floor. Her shoes were worn at the heels. Her blazer was a size too big, borrowed from a thrift store, but she swayed in her chair as if she were standing on a Broadway stage. She lifted the stapler like a microphone and whispered to herself, "Vote for the cat. He's the king of ethics." She giggled under her breath, adding a dramatic meow that bounced off the glass walls. For a moment, she wasn't the broke secretary juggling bills and late rent. She was a star. What Erica didn't know was that someone had returned. Jonathan Blackwell, the CEO, the man whispered about in hallways, the billionaire who hadn't cracked a smile in 20 years, was standing at the doorway. He had come back for a forgotten file, but now, folder in hand, he stopped dead in his tracks. His staff always described him as cold marble come to life, tall, broad-shouldered, a man carved by discipline and tragedy. He rarely spoke more than necessary. Rumor had it that no one, not even his board of directors, had ever seen him laugh. Yet there he stood, silently watching the spectacle before him. Erica spun in her chair, adding a ridiculous hip shake, and declared to no one in particular, "He meows in the Senate. He's just fantastic." Jonathan's eyes narrowed, but not with anger. For the first time in 2 decades, the corners of his lips curved upward, barely but undeniably, a fragile smile. Erica froze. She had turned mid-dance and found herself staring straight into the piercing gray eyes of her boss. Her scream rattled the entire floor. Papers flew everywhere, her purse tipped over, spilling lipstick, loose coins, and a tiny rubber duck across the carpet. She tripped over her swivel chair and landed against the desk with a painful thud. "My ninja boss, did you just teleport here?" She gasped, scrambling to collect her things. Jonathan cleared his throat, attempting to compose himself, but his jaw twitched as though he were fighting back laughter. "I came back for a document." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. They shimmered with something new, something his employees would swear was impossible. Erica clutched the rubber duck, cheeks burning. "I swear this song has social depth. It's about feline representation in politics," she blurted out, desperate to salvage a shred of dignity. He raised an eyebrow. For a second, she thought he might actually laugh. Instead, he said, calm but amused, "Do you always sing when you think no one's watching?" Erica hesitated, then shrugged. "Only when I'm really happy, or really tired, or maybe when my blood sugar is crashing." She bent down to gather the scattered folders, but her hands shook. Jonathan knelt silently to help her. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the silence between them felt heavy, charged, neither awkward nor hostile, but alive. The next morning, Erica recounted the entire disaster to her friends in the break room. Jessica from accounting, sipping her coffee, shook her head. Erica, sweetie, please tell me you're joking. Jonathan Blackwell does not smile. He wouldn't even crack one if he won the lottery. Robert from marketing nearly choked on his orange juice. What did you put in that song? Witchcraft. Erica stirred her coffee with a flimsy plastic spoon, the sound annoyingly loud. I'm telling you, he smiled. I saw it. I might even call the New York Times. Jessica leaned closer, whispering, if you made him smile, girl, you might have just awakened a legend. Erica laughed, but deep down, a tiny voice whispered, what if it was true? What if I really did? And far above them in his glass office, Jonathan Blackwell stared out at the skyline, touching his lips with a troubled hand. He couldn't stop replaying that moment in his mind. The ridiculous song, the fearless sparkle in her eyes, and the way something long buried inside him had cracked open for the first time in 20 years. Jonathan Blackwell's world was made of glass, steel, and silence. From the corner office of the 52nd floor, he commanded an empire worth billions. His schedule was booked 3 months ahead. Assistants barely lasted a week under his scrutiny, and competitors described him as a machine in a tailored suit. Tall, strikingly handsome, with features that belonged on a magazine cover, Jonathan was the kind of man women whispered about and men envied. But there was a hollowness behind his sharp gray eyes, a loneliness no fortune could fix. For years, people speculated about why he never smiled. Some said betrayal. Others whispered about a tragedy. Whatever it was, it had turned him into marble, beautiful but untouchable. On the opposite end of the city, Erica Collins's life was nothing like his. Her Brooklyn apartment was cramped, with a leaky faucet and a radiator that groaned like an old man in winter. Every morning she rushed down the worn staircase, balancing a second-hand tote bag and clutching her Metro card as if it were gold. At the corner bodega, her neighbor Mrs. Nancy often called out while watering her geraniums. Erica, honey, you need to eat more, you're all bones. Erica smiled even when her stomach grumbled. Rent first, groceries second, Mrs. Nancy, that's the Collins philosophy. Mrs. Nancy shook her head, muttering to her cat, that girl has a heart too big for her own good. Erica worked long hours at Blackwell Corporation, juggling stacks of reports and endless coffee runs. She knew the other assistants whispered about her thrift store clothes and dollar store makeup. Jessica once defended her in the break room. At least she's not fake like half this office, she said. But Robert, never one to filter his sarcasm, quipped, she's adorable, but let's be real. A secretary like her isn't exactly going places. What they didn't see was Erica's hidden strength. She could memorize numbers at a glance, catch mistakes in contracts seasoned lawyers missed, and calm angry clients with nothing more than her gentle voice. She never bragged about it. She simply did her job quietly, like background music no one paid attention to. The night Jonathan had glimpsed her ridiculous song, something had shifted. Back in his penthouse, he poured himself a glass of whiskey but barely touched it. The city spread out below like a galaxy, but he couldn't stop thinking of the girl with the oversized blazer and the stapler microphone. Her voice wasn't polished, her dance was absurd, but she was alive. He stared at his reflection in the glass window. For 20 years he had carried grief like armor, building walls no one could climb. Why her? Why that moment? He thought. The confusion unsettled him more than any hostile takeover ever had. Meanwhile, Erica was curled up on her lumpy couch, phone pressed to her ear. I swear, Jess, he smiled, she insisted. Jessica laughed from the other end. Erica, If Jonathan Blackwell smiled at you, then I'm marrying Prince Harry tomorrow. I'm serious. He was standing right there, and for 1 second, just 1 second, his face changed. There was a pause. Then Jessica said softly, "Be careful, a man like him. He's fire, get too close and you'll burn." Erica hugged her pillow tighter. She wasn't in love, not yet, but the memory of his faint smile haunted her. She whispered to herself in the dark, "Why do I feel like I just unlocked a secret no one else knows?" The difference between them couldn't be sharper. He dined in private rooms at Michelin-star restaurants. She reheated ramen in a chipped bowl. He drove a black Bentley with tinted windows. She ran to catch the subway, apologizing as her bag spilled onto strangers' laps. He lived surrounded by art galleries, power, and silence. She lived surrounded by neighbors' noise and the smell of fried chicken from the shop below. And yet, fate had already tied their paths together with something stronger than money or status. A single, impossible smile. The morning after her disastrous concert, Erica tried to keep her head down at work. She hummed under her breath while making copies, hoping no one noticed. But as she stood by the printer, she sensed a presence. Jonathan Blackwell was walking down the hallway, expression as unreadable as always. Erica stiffened. Instinctively, she began humming the same silly tune again, so softly she thought only she could hear it. "If the mouse is going to win, squeak, squeak." Jonathan's stride slowed for the briefest moment. His gaze flicked toward her and she caught the tiniest spark in his eyes, amusement he was trying desperately to conceal. Erica bit her lip to stop herself from laughing. It worked, she thought. The ice is cracking. Later that week, a crisis hit. A major Japanese investor, Mr. Tanaka, arrived earlier than expected. Jonathan's trusted assistant had called in sick, and panic rippled through the office. Erica was shoved into the conference room to stand in until someone more qualified showed up. Jessica hissed in her ear, "Erica, don't embarrass yourself. This is the biggest deal of the year." Erica's knees shook as she poured water for the investor. The glass slipped, spilling across the documents. She gasped, reaching for napkins. I'm so sorry." Jonathan's jaw tightened, prepared for humiliation. But then Mr. Tanaka chuckled. "You are very authentic," he said in careful English. "Different from assistants I know." Erica blushed, bowing awkwardly. "I guess I'm one of a kind." The meeting should have been a disaster. Instead, Tanaka left laughing, declaring it the most entertaining negotiation he'd attended. The deal was sealed. Jonathan sat in silence afterward, staring at Erica as she nervously doodled cats on the back of her notes. How is it possible, he thought, that her mistakes somehow turn into victories? A few days later, another moment unfolded. Erica was carrying a stack of reports through the lobby when she collided head-on with Jonathan. Papers scattered like snow. She gasped, kneeling to gather them. He bent down at the same time, and for one dizzying second their hands touched. Erica froze, so did he. She looked up, cheeks burning. His eyes, sharp and stormy, lingered longer than they should have. Something flickered there, curiosity, maybe even warmth, before he pulled his hand back too quickly, as if burned. I'll pick them up," Erica stammered. Jonathan stood, adjusting his cufflinks, his mask snapping back into place. "Be more careful next time," he said coldly. But his voice carried a softness she hadn't heard before. That night, Erica couldn't help telling Mrs. Nancy about it when she stopped by the bodega. "He actually helped me pick up the papers," Erica said, almost whispering, like it was a secret too fragile to share. Mrs. Nancy raised her brows. "Jonathan Blackwell, helping. Now that's a headline." She patted Erica's hand. Careful, dear, men like him, their hearts are vaults, hard to unlock, even harder to hold on to once you do. Erica smiled faintly, but inside her chest tightened. She wasn't falling for him, was she? Jonathan, however, wasn't smiling in his penthouse that night. He sat in the dark, replaying her clumsy apologies, the fearless way she had looked him in the eye, the warmth in her touch. For years, he had buried himself in numbers and negotiations, convinced nothing could stir him again. Yet here she was, a secretary in hand-me-down clothes, and she was unraveling him without even trying. The ice was cracking, but the question hung in the air, unspoken and dangerous. Was Jonathan Blackwell, New York's untouchable CEO, beginning to feel something? The whispers started small, like a faint breeze in a crowded hallway. At first, Erica didn't notice. She was too busy running reports to the 30th floor and balancing 3 cups of coffee without spilling. But when she walked into the break room one afternoon, the silence hit her like a wall. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Eyes darted her way, then quickly down to their phones. Jessica slid up beside her, voice low. "Erica, there's talk going around. Something ugly." Erica frowned. "What kind of talk?" Before Jessica could answer, Robert smirked from across the room. "Guess it pays to sing for the boss, huh? Not everyone can land a billionaire fiancé out of nowhere." Erica froze, heat rushing to her cheeks. "What are you talking about?" Robert held up his phone. On the screen, a gossip site blared the headline. "From secretary to social climber, Jonathan Blackwell's mysterious engagement." Below it was a blurry picture, her leaving the office with Jonathan a step behind. Erica's stomach dropped. "This is ridiculous. I'm not engaged to him." But Jessica's expression told her the damage was already spreading. "They're saying you're using him, Erica, that you planned this, that you're a gold digger." The words sliced deeper than she expected. By evening, the whispers had become roars. Social media was merciless. "Another Cinderella story, but she's no Cinderella. Opportunist of the year. Poor man fooled by a secretary." At her apartment, Erica sat on the couch, scrolling through comments until tears blurred the screen. Her phone buzzed non-stop, unknown numbers, journalists, even old acquaintances she hadn't spoken to in years. "Mrs. Nancy knocked softly on her door. "Sweetheart, I saw the news." Erica tried to smile, but her voice cracked. "They think I'm after his money. They don't know me at all." "Mrs. Nancy sat beside her, taking her hand. "People will always talk, but what matters is whether he believes in you." Meanwhile, at the Blackwell penthouse, Jonathan stood in front of the fireplace, phone in hand, scrolling through the same headlines. His ex, Victoria Hampton, had sent him screenshots with a venomous note attached. "Told you she was nothing but a social climber. Call me when you're ready for someone real." Jonathan's jaw clenched. Victoria had always known how to strike where it hurt. His best friend and legal advisor, Daniel, sat across from him. "You need to make a statement, Leo. The press won't let this go. Either you distance yourself from her, or the company pays the price." Jonathan stared into the flames, silent. His mind replayed Erica's laughter, the way she had spilled sugar on Tanaka's folder and somehow saved the deal, the warmth in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. But doubt whispered too. What if they are right? What if she only stayed close because of the money? The next morning, Erica walked into the office with trembling hands. Cameras flashed outside the building, reporters shouting her name. She kept her head down, clutching her tote bag. Inside, the stares were worse than the noise. At Jonathan's office door, she hesitated. Finally, she pushed it open. He looked up from his desk, his face unreadable. The man who had once smiled at her now seemed carved back into stone. Erica's voice broke. "I didn't do this. I didn't." Jonathan held up a hand. His eyes were cold, but beneath the surface, something warred inside him. "Erica, the board is furious. Investors are nervous. I need time to think." Her heart splintered. "You don't believe me," she whispered. Silence. The unspoken answer hung in the air like a storm cloud. That night, Erica packed her things at her desk, shoving pens and notebooks into a cardboard box. Jessica tried to stop her. "Erica, wait, don't let them chase you out. You didn't do anything wrong." But Erica shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "If even he doesn't believe me, what's the point?" She walked out of Blackwell Corporation, the city lights blurring through her tears, unaware that Jonathan was standing at his office window, watching her leave. His fists clenched at his sides. For the first time in years, he wasn't certain of anything. Not his judgment, not his heart, not even himself. The days after Erica left Blackwell Corporation felt longer than any quarter-year report. Jonathan buried himself in meetings, contracts, and figures, but the silence of his penthouse pressed in like a weight. He stared at the skyline every night, whiskey untouched, replaying the same moment, her eyes brimming with hurt as she whispered, "You don't believe me." One evening, he found himself parked outside her Brooklyn apartment without realizing how he got there. The neighborhood was noisy, kids playing on the sidewalk, the smell of fried food drifting from the corner shop, neighbors chatting on stoops. It was a world foreign to him, yet warm in a way his marble and glass life never was. Mrs. Nancy, watering her flowers, spotted him. "You're the man from the news," she said bluntly. Jonathan cleared his throat. "I'm here for Erica." She studied him for a moment, then shook her head. "If you came to break her again, turn that fancy car around. That girl's heart has been through enough." Before he could answer, Erica stepped outside, carrying a bag of groceries. She froze when she saw him. "Jonathan." Her voice was wary, her grip tightening on the bag. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," he said. His tone was steady, but his eyes betrayed the storm inside. They ended up walking through the park near her apartment. The air was crisp, and the sound of children's laughter echoed in the distance. Erica kept her arms folded, creating space he wasn't sure he deserved. "I don't have much to say," she murmured. "The world thinks I'm a fraud, and you," her voice cracked. "You didn't defend me." Jonathan stopped walking. "Erica, there's something I've never told anyone, not even my board, not my family, no one." She looked at him, surprised by the tremor in his voice. "I had a twin brother," he began slowly. "Nathan, we were identical, inseparable. He was the one who laughed easily, who made everyone feel alive. And 20 years ago, I lost him. An accident. One second we were together, the next he was gone." His voice faltered. For a man known for being unshakable, the confession seemed to tear something loose. "I stopped smiling the day he died, because it felt wrong. Like if I allowed myself joy, I'd be betraying him, so I buried it, buried everything. Business was easier than feelings." He exhaled sharply, looking away. "That's why, when people accused you, when Victoria sent me those lies, I doubted. Because losing someone once makes you scared to believe in anyone again." Erica's eyes softened, her anger giving way to sorrow. She stepped closer. "Jonathan," she whispered, "pain doesn't honor him. Your brother wouldn't want you locked away in silence for the rest of your life. Smiling again doesn't mean you forgot him. It means you're carrying him with you into the light." He met her gaze, the walls crumbling. "But why you? Why is it your laughter, your ridiculous songs, your clumsy heart that made me feel alive again?" She reached for his hand, trembling but firm. Because you needed someone who wasn't impressed by your money or your titles or your walls. You needed someone who just saw you, and maybe that someone is me. For a long moment they stood in silence, their hands entwined. The city noise faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of their breathing. His mask, carefully built over 2 decades, cracked completely. Jonathan's voice broke. "I don't know how to do this, Erica. I don't know how to let someone in without losing them again." Erica squeezed his hand gently. "Then let me show you, step by step, smile by smile, we'll learn together." And for the first time in 20 years, Jonathan didn't just smile, he laughed. It was quiet, raw, and shaky, but real. Erica's chest swelled, tears pricking her eyes. She knew she wasn't just standing in front of a billionaire CEO. She was standing in front of a man who had finally chosen to live again. The scandal still lingered, but Jonathan was determined to turn the narrative around. At a press event with investors, he stunned the room when he introduced Erica not as his employee but as his fiancée. Cameras flashed, gasps rippled through the hall. Erica almost choked on her water. Later, backstage, she grabbed his arm. "Fiancé, Jonathan, are you out of your mind?" He looked at her calmly, though his pulse betrayed him. It was the only way to silence them. "If I treat this like a passing rumor, they'll keep circling like sharks, but if I stand by you publicly, they'll have to back down." Erica crossed her arms. "So you want me to play fiancé until the storm passes? Pretend to be madly in love with the most impossible man in New York?" His lips twitched, the closest thing to a grin. "Exactly." She sighed, muttering, "You'd better know this comes with conditions. I don't play the part for free." He arched a brow. "And what do you want, Erica?" Her voice softened, but her eyes held steady. "Respect. No more doubting me. No more looking at me like I'm disposable. If I'm your fiancé, even a fake one, then you treat me like I matter." For the first time, Jonathan faltered. "You do matter," he said quietly, almost as if confessing to himself. From that day on, the performance began. They arrived at charity galas hand in hand. Her thrift store dresses swapped for elegant gowns that still felt alien on her skin. She made nervous jokes at the dinner table, while he maintained his usual stoic presence. But something was shifting. At one event, Erica whispered during the introductions, "Jonathan, I don't know how to talk to these people. They're asking me about art collections I've never even heard of." He leaned closer, his voice low so only she could hear. "Then don't pretend, just be you. They'll never forget it." Later that night, she answered a question about modern sculpture by comparing it to cartoon doodles she used to draw as a kid. The table burst into laughter, not mockery, but genuine amusement. Jonathan, watching from beside her, felt something stir in his chest, pride and something deeper. One evening after another exhausting gala, Erica kicked off her heels in the back of the limousine, sighing in relief. "I think I smiled so much my face is going to fall off." Jonathan smirked. "I wouldn't mind if it did. Your smile seems to make people sign contracts faster than my entire finance team." She laughed, leaning back against the seat. "Careful, Mr. Blackwell. If you keep complimenting me, people might think you actually like me." Silence settled between them, heavier than the laughter. Their eyes met in the reflection of the tinted window. Neither looked away. He reached for her hand almost unconsciously. She didn't pull back. Days later, during a photo shoot meant to prove their engagement, the photographer clapped his hands. "Closer. You're supposed to look in love. Pretend." Jonathan placed his hands on Erica's face, tilting her chin upward. She expected his usual detached expression. Instead, his gaze lingered, vulnerable and unguarded. Her breath caught. "Jonathan," she whispered, "they are watching." "I know," he murmured, "but for once I don't care." And before she could process, his lips pressed against hers. It was supposed to be staged, a performance for the cameras, but the world around them blurred. The click of shutters, the calls of the photographer, even the flashing lights all faded. It wasn't fake. It couldn't be. That night, Erica lay awake, replaying the kiss in her mind. She whispered to Jessica over the phone, "I think it wasn't acting. Not for him, not for me either." Jessica was quiet for a moment before saying, "Erica, people spend their whole lives waiting for a love that feels real. Don't run from it just because it scares you." At his penthouse, Jonathan stood by the window again. Only this time he wasn't haunted by silence. He was haunted by the memory of her lips, the softness of her hand in his. He poured a whiskey but didn't drink. Instead, he whispered to the empty room, "This isn't pretend anymore." The storm had raged for weeks. Headlines called her a fraud. Commentators mocked her clothes, her past, even her accent. But then everything shifted. Jonathan walked into the boardroom of Blackwell Corporation one morning carrying a thick folder. The board of directors, stiff in their seats, expected another quarterly presentation. Instead, he dropped the folder onto the table with a sharp thud. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice low and commanding, "we've discovered that every accusation against Erica Collins was fabricated." Morrison, the eldest director, raised an eyebrow. "Fabricated by whom?" Jonathan opened the folder and began handing out copies. Inside were documents, digital analyses, and a signed statement from a private investigator. The messages, the so-called proof, were created by Victoria Hampton. Manipulated images, fake texts, an elaborate smear campaign. The room fell silent. Jonathan continued, "She wanted to destroy Erica, to destroy us, but the evidence is clear. Erica Collins is innocent, and his voice cracked slightly before he steadied it, "I am in love with her." Gasps rippled across the table. The press conference came hours later. Cameras pointed at him like loaded guns, reporters shouting over one another. Jonathan stepped to the podium. For once, he wasn't the untouchable CEO. He was just a man who had something to fight for. 2 decades ago, he began, "I lost my twin brother. I buried my laughter with him. For 20 years, I convinced myself I didn't need anyone until Erica." He paused, letting her name linger in the air. "They called her a gold digger, a fraud, but the truth is she's the most genuine person I've ever known. She saved this company in ways none of you will ever see, and she saved me." Cameras flashed wildly. Reporters scribbled furiously. "If she forgives me," Jonathan continued, voice thick with emotion, "I intend to spend the rest of my life proving to her and to the world that she means more to me than all the wealth and power in this city." The room erupted. Headlines exploded within minutes. Erica, however, wasn't watching from a penthouse or a luxury car. She was at Esperanza Community School, surrounded by children banging on drums and blowing recorders wildly out of tune. Jessica burst in, breathless. "Erica, you need to see this." On the tiny TV in the teacher's lounge, Jonathan's words echoed. Erica's eyes filled with tears. The kids ran to her, tugging at her hands. "Miss Erica, that's your panda boyfriend." She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "Not panda boyfriend, sweetheart, maybe something more." That night, Jonathan showed up at the school. The kids were finishing their music lesson when he walked in, wearing a suit far too expensive for the cracked linoleum floors. He stood in the doorway, watching Erica kneel beside a little boy, guiding his small fingers across a xylophone. When she looked up and saw him, her breath caught. The children gasped, whispering excitedly. Jonathan crossed the room slowly, his eyes locked on hers. When he reached her, he dropped to one knee, not caring about the dusty floor, not caring about the stairs. "Erica Collins," he said, voice steady but soft enough only she could truly hear. "I've spent 20 years living half a life. You brought me back, and I don't want to waste another second without you." His pocket, he pulled a ring, not ostentatious, not flashy, but elegant and timeless. The children squealed. Jessica covered her mouth. Even Mrs. Nancy, who had tagged along, muttered, "Well, it's about time." Erica's eyes blurred with tears. She whispered, "Jonathan, you don't have to." He interrupted gently, "I want to. For once in my life, I want something real, and that's you." The room fell silent, waiting. Erica finally nodded, her voice trembling but sure. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The children erupted in cheers. Instruments clattered. And Jonathan, the man who had once lived in silence, pulled her into his arms as though he had finally found the missing piece of himself. The wedding wasn't held in a cathedral or a ballroom dripping with chandeliers. Erica insisted on something different, something real. It was springtime in Prospect Park. Rows of white chairs lined the grass beneath the canopy of blooming cherry blossoms. Children from Esperanza Community School sat in the front, fidgeting with excitement, their tiny instruments resting on their laps, ready to play the opening notes of the ceremony. Jessica squeezed Erica's hand before she walked down the aisle. "You look like a fairy tale, Erica. Just don't trip, okay?" Erica laughed through her nerves. "If I fall, at least I'll know he'll catch me." When the music began, soft, imperfect, but filled with love, she stepped forward. The world seemed to blur, and all she could see was Jonathan waiting beneath the arch of blossoms. His suit was sharp as ever, but the stern mask he once wore was gone. He was smiling, not faintly, not cautiously, but openly, like a man who had finally let the sun in. As she reached him, Jonathan whispered, "I never thought I'd see this day." Erica grinned, her eyes shining. "Believe it, you're stuck with me now." During the vows, Jonathan's voice broke but never wavered. "Erica Collins," he said, holding her hands tightly, "I once thought my life was complete with numbers, contracts, and silence. But you made me realize I was only surviving, not living. You gave me back my laughter. You gave me back myself." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "I hadn't smiled in 20 years, and now, because of you, I smile every day. Erica, I am happier than I ever thought possible." Tears blurred Erica's vision as she answered, "Jonathan, when we met, I was invisible to the world, just a poor secretary who no one thought mattered. But you saw me, not because of what I had, but because of who I am. And now I see you too, not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the man who chose to open his heart again." The crowd rose in applause as they sealed their vows with a kiss. That evening, under the soft glow of lanterns strung through the park, children laughed and neighbors danced. Jessica clinked her glass against Robert's. "I told you he smiled," she teased. Robert rolled his eyes. Yeah, guess miracles happen." Mrs. Nancy hugged Erica so tightly she almost lost her breath. "Sweetheart, you're proof that goodness always wins. Don't ever forget that." Months later in their home, a blend of his sleek penthouse and her cozy touches, Jonathan padded into the kitchen with messy hair and an apron tied around his waist. Smoke rose from the toaster. Erica leaned against the counter, laughing. "Jonathan Blackwell, billionaire CEO, conquered Wall Street but can't conquer breakfast." He threw his hands up. "What can I say? Some battles aren't meant to be won." She walked over, resting a hand on her stomach, their child growing inside her. "Good thing you've got bigger victories ahead." Jonathan kissed her forehead, his smile soft and unguarded. You know, I never imagined this. A family, a home, joy that feels permanent. Erica looked up at him, her voice tender. You earned it, Jonathan. Every laugh, every smile, it's yours again. That night, as they lay together with the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Jonathan whispered the truth that had been waiting all along. I didn't smile for 20 years, he said, pulling her closer. But now I'm happier than I ever imagined I could be, and it's because of you. Erica closed her eyes, her heart full, knowing that this wasn't just a fairy tale ending. It was the beginning of something even greater, the life they would build together, step by step, smile by smile. As I reflect on this story, I realize something powerful. Sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves become the very prisons that keep us from living. Jonathan spent 20 years in silence, hiding behind wealth and power, but it only took one honest soul, a woman with no riches but with a heart full of light, to bring him back to life. For me, the lesson is clear. True love, kindness, and sincerity carry a strength far greater than money or status. When we dare to open our hearts, we not only heal ourselves, we may also heal the people around us. And I wonder, how many of us are still hiding behind walls of fear, pride, or past pain? What if the key to freedom is already standing in front of us, waiting for us to let them in? Dear friends, if you find this story meaningful and want to help us share these important values, please subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next inspiring story. Together, we can build a strong community full of potential and a spirit of justice.